Hello, everyone. Ron Callis here with One Firefly. Thanks again for joining me on another episode of Automation Unplugged. What time is it? It's 12:30 on Wednesday, July 19th. It's been a couple of weeks since I had an Automation Unplugged episode. You'll have to excuse me. I took a vacation and spent the 4th of July weekend down in Cancun, Mexico with my family. Had a great time. And then last week I was traveling in Philadelphia for business. So anyway, today we have a great guest. I've got a longtime industry veteran and friend, a gentleman named Gordon Isaac. And we're going to have a fun conversation. This is actually, here, I'll bring him in so you guys can see him. Hey, Gordon, how's it going?
I'm good, Ron. How are you?
I am doing very well. You and I actually tried to do this before, didn't we?
We did, but technology got the best of us technologists.
It did. It tends to do that. Let me check over on our Facebook page and make sure our stream is coming through. Let me just wait for that to load. Yeah, there we go. We already got an audience. Hey, gang! Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining Gordon and myself, and appreciate you guys showing up. And yeah, there we go. We already got some likes. If you're out there, please share this stream so your friends in the industry can see the content, and certainly give us likes and comments as we go along here. It will be greatly appreciated. So, and Gordon, I appreciate your patience. As we mentioned, we tried to do this about 6 episodes ago. You're actually my guest number 4. Before we had just a terrible microphone issue, and I think we were probably 15 to 20 minutes in to the interview when we had to, unfortunately, just kill it because the technology was not cooperating. So I appreciate you making time in your schedule and joining me back here.
You bet. Glad to be back.
Awesome. All right. So if you don't mind, just to lay the foundation, Gordon, can you give our audience just a little bit of background on yourself? And you've been a 24-year veteran of the custom integration industry. And I'd like to know kind of how you got started. How did you get pulled into this space?
Sure, absolutely. It started with getting into car audio back in the day. That was, a kid looking at car magazines and Crutchfield magazines and playing around with car stereo stuff, and started competing in car audio shows, and ended up at an event in Minnesota at a local retailer, Audio King, and eventually ended up working there and growing through the company, became a store manager, and have kind of just been moving along, working at a lot of great companies over the years. So, I love this industry. I love the space. It's a lot of fun. As I say, we get to sell toys for a living and the stuff that everybody else wants. And it's always fresh and exciting. There's always something new and changing, that's for sure.
Now, what did that career path look like for you? So, 24 years is a healthy career. What are the types of roles and positions that you've held in this space? Sounds like you started in the automotive audio side of the business.
Yeah, so a lot of people ask, where did you go to school? And I tell them I went to work. I didn't go to school, so I got my education. I got my education from the industry. So growing up within a large retail organization and understanding the business side of things, managing large teams. I've worked for manufacturers, great manufacturers such as Bose and Crestron, Speakercraft, Elan, Panamax. And I've also worked for a rep firm before as well, and I worked for a really large $20 million integrator. So, I've as opportunities have come up, I've seen those opportunities as ways to continue to grow and bring value to various organizations, and I've learned a lot throughout the way along the way. So one of those definitely being hiring and recruiting and the importance of building strong teams.
Yeah, so I wanted to zoom in on that particular topic, and in fact, a lot of the times when I'm interviewing and I have guests on, we cover a very broad set of topics. But if you will allow me, I'd like to zero in on something that I know is close to your heart and mind, as well as mine, because I think it's affecting our industry as a whole. And that is around the hiring and the retainment of staff. So you've had as you mentioned, a nice career. You've been in a lot of different, both on the dealer side and the manufacturer side of the equation. Would you agree with the premise that hiring or the problems and challenges around hiring today and retainment of team members are one of the bigger maybe challenges to the growth for an integrator, growth within this industry?
Absolutely. I think the challenge that we face is that this isn't an industry that a lot of people go to school for, and it's not a trade. While it is a trade that you can go and get an education in, it's not something that you see offered as much as you would say to be an electrician or to be a plumber or architect or those types of things. And so a lot of our industry has been built organically. And so I think that's part of the challenge, is that as we continue to grow and expand rapidly, because technology is growing so fast, we need to find good people. And there isn't enough education out there for our industry. And so we find ourselves kind of recruiting and training our own people. And that's a challenging thing, especially considering that a lot of business owners are running smaller companies and aren't taking the time or don't have the time to focus on this part of it.
So the $1 million question is, how do integrators fix that problem? I mean, in basic sense, right now, integrators, there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of growth. Maybe they've hired One Firefly and their marketing is just taking off and really helping them with those new opportunities and lead gen. So they're growing, but you can only do so many jobs with the people you have. And so you need new installers, you need new programmers, you need project managers, you need, people in the warehouse. So what's your perspective? I mean, is there an easy solution, or maybe what are some of the talking points around how integrators could address that?
Sure. Absolutely. Great question. It's a challenge that I run into with a lot of dealers over especially recently. I'm hearing it from a lot of dealers saying they need more people to grow. And I think the first thing is that you have to realize that recruiting people is a full-time job. Hiring people it's a job skill. And there's a reason why there's recruiting companies out there, because they spend all their time trying to find good people and pair them up with good opportunities. So if you want to use a recruiting company, that's certainly a good option. But if you're planning on doing it yourself, it's really about taking the time for you to step away from being in the middle of your day-to-day stuff and to work on your business instead of being stuck in your business. And so I know that's something that is starting to be said a lot more, and it's very important. And I know it's easier said than done, but shutting down for a few days, taking a look at your company and evaluating what your operating efficiency is, and seeing what type of bandwidth your team has in order to be able to know whether you're operating at 50% capacity or 75% capacity, and then looking for what are the people that you need to fill the holes that you have, and putting a plan together to go after that. But if you feel that hiring a new sales guy is just something you need because you need more sales, what you're probably missing is that you're going to not just need a sales guy, but you're going to possibly need other people as well. And you need to have a clear understanding as to how big is your company right now, how is it working with the team that it has, and then what is going to happen when you add that new body, whether that's a new installer or a new project manager or a new salesperson. What's the workload that's going to be generated by that person, and does it create any other challenges as well?
So here at One Firefly, I'm a big advocate of the requirement that when we're growing or scaling our business, we always make sure we have a job description. a clear definition of the roles and responsibilities that we need. Mechanically, the mechanics of the business require these set of capabilities. And then we take the next step to not only define that job description, but then look at what's the type of person, what's the type of human being we would want on our team fulfilling that job description. What is your perspective? What's normal out there in the industry? And I think my video just froze, so I'm actually going to switch over to you here. But the question is, what do you think is the normal out there for the industry?
Well, I think a lot of integrators are, they're small entrepreneurial businesses, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, this is one of the cool areas of business where you can have an idea, start a company, and that's a great thing. However, if you want to turn it into a long-lasting business, then you do have to start to apply some process to it. And so I think one of the challenges for entrepreneurs is getting their grasp around all the different aspects of a company. And one of those is creating an appropriate culture, a business culture that's there. And so part of creating a good culture is to have job descriptions. It's to make sure that people understand what's expected of them and what their day, what their day is going to look like, what their week's going to look like, what their career looks like within an organization. And, that's tough. If you're a 2-man, 3-man show and you're looking to hire that fourth person, you're probably not thinking to yourself that fourth person is going to have a dedicated job description, because they're going to just have to pull their weight wherever they're needed. But that's okay, though. And it's okay to have that be in your job description, that your job consists of all of these different types of tasks that you feel that they're going to be responsible for. But at least by having that job description, the future employee can have an idea as to what to expect when they get there. And as your company grows and as those job descriptions become more narrow and finite, then people really know how they work together as a team and who's responsible for what. Because I think we've all worked for companies where we felt like we've done work that wasn't necessarily in our job description. And meanwhile, we looked over at other people that were doing the job, and that causes a dip in morale. So I think having a documented job description, even if it means you're putting on every single thing that you do in a given day, at least that employee that comes on knows these are all the different things that I'm responsible for doing, and there isn't any type of miscommunication when they're asked to do something.
From your experience, Gordon, what number of integrators out there, in fact, have job descriptions and the formulation of that before they post a job? I mean, that's like the basics, right? To put that in place before you go and try to start your hiring process. I mean, who are you looking for, and what do they need to be capable of doing? What's your view of the integrators you've known in the marketplace, and whether or not they're doing that first step?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for a lot of dealers, and again, it really comes down to time management. And when you're running a company, there's so many things that you have to be responsible for. And I think for most business owners, if they need to hire somebody, they go out and they look for people. They ask for people to refer someone to them. Maybe they take an ad out, but they're plan and process. You do start to see it more with some of the larger companies that are out there. But again, this is something it's like writing a business plan. There's not a lot of companies that have an up-to-date business plan. And it's because it takes a lot of time and effort. And most people that are entrepreneurs are spending their time and effort running their company, getting sales, keeping the business moving, and are not spending a lot of time on these operational, foundational things.
No, I completely agree. What are your recommendations, Gordon? Once a job description has been written and it's posted, where does an integrator look for people? I mean, what are your recommendations or ideas around finding good talent?
Sure. Well, I can tell you, I've hired 6 people in the last, in the last 6 months. And a majority of the people came through my social media networks through LinkedIn. I did use a recruiter as well, and was able to use a recruiter for one of the positions. But a majority came through my social media network. So the first thing is understand that recruiting is not a something you do only when you absolutely need somebody. It's something that you should be doing throughout the year. And what I mean by that is that don't spend all your time screwing around on social media, reading a bunch of unnecessary stuff that's distracting you from your business. But post articles about your company and about projects that you've done that will entice people to want to know more to installers, salespeople, programmers, financial people throughout LinkedIn and throughout the social media networks, and get connected with those people. Because again, you might not need somebody today, but down the road, if it's large enough, what ends up happening is when you post a request for trying to find someone, you'll have the audience that either A, might be the person that you're looking to try to hire, or secondly, it might be somebody who says, gosh, this looks like a great company. I know somebody that might be a good fit. And that's really one of the first things is make sure you're using your social media on a regular basis. You don't have to spend hours a week on it. Spend 1 hour a week. Spend 10 minutes a day, and just post some interesting stuff that makes your company stand out and look like a place that people want to be a part of, and also connect with people that you might need those resources down the road. The other thing is always keep your eyes open when you're out there as a consumer. As an example, my internet provider, Cox, struggle constantly to try to do business with them over the phone. But I went into a local branch and on 2 occasions had the same person help me. And the person's customer service skills were just through the roof. And his technical knowledge was exceptional. And I said to myself, I wrote his name down and I said, if there's ever a time where I need a person with this skill set, or if somebody says I need a person that has this skill set, then I'm going to recommend that they try to reach out to this person, because they're in a position where I don't know that they have much of a career, and they could potentially move up into a better organization down the road. So, whether it's looking at, go to Target and go walk through the camera section or TV section, Walmart, go to, obviously Best Buy is a great place because they have a good training program that's in place there. But also look at like your waiters and your waitresses and things like that. There are great people everywhere. And it's a matter of just keeping your eyes open for people that give you good customer service, seem to be intelligent, and then focus your search locations based on if you're looking for someone who has an existing skill set that can come in, or if you're looking for just good, talented people that you can go and train and coach and kind of mold to what you want them to be in your organization.
I'm reminded of a story. You and I both used to work at Crestron at one point in time in our careers. And I remember Randy Klein, I don't know his formal title now, the guy running the show at Crestron, he was getting his car service, I think it was a BMW, and he ran into someone that was delivering great customer service to him. That guy's name, I believe, is Brian Shelley, who was ultimately led that kind of meeting, off-chance meeting, led to Brian being pulled in for interviews, and now he's been at Crestron running the New York showroom for the better part of the last, I want to say, 6 or 7 plus years, if not longer. I don't have those dates exactly, but it's exactly what you're referencing. Just always have your eyes open for talent wherever that talent might be and wherever you might be.
Yeah, and Brian's a great guy. I know him well, and great. I didn't know that background, but that's a great example of just keeping your eyes open for talent. And again, keep in mind too that recruiters are a good option. You're going to typically pay around 25% of the person's salary to use a recruiter. But again, if you don't have a lot of time, that might be an option. But the reality is we all have time because we're all consumers. We're all shopping around. We're all going to different places. We're all researching our competition. And as we're doing that, we're seeing people that have skill sets that if you're looking for it, you'll find probably could bring value to your organization.
No, it's a great point. Gordon, do you mind shedding some light on what you think the process should be for an integrator? I mean, what is the hiring process from, I zeroed in a little bit on writing a job description, but do you mind just giving a broad brush of what you think a hiring process could look like for a typical integrator?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times the owner ends up becoming, a lot of times the owner wants to be kind of the final decision maker. And I really think the owner needs to be the initial person doing the work, looking for that talent. And once they find the talent, one of the most important things, in my opinion, is to involve the rest of the team. Because you want to get buy-in from the team. You want this new person to fit into your culture, and you want to make sure that the people that the company of two, or whether you're running a 40 or 50 or 100 person organization, you want to make sure that the person you hire is going to be supported by the people that they're going to work with. And so I think the first thing is to identify talent, find somebody that you feel has a skill set and the personality to fit in your culture. Then it's about getting buy-in from your team by having other people in your organization interview them. And there's a variety of different ways to do this. You can do a group interview, which is definitely a test for anybody to go through. You could do one-on-one type interviews. You could do it over the phone. It doesn't have to always be in person. One of the things that's nice about this as well is that you'll find that a lot of people in your company probably don't have experience interviewing people. So this is an opportunity for you to coach and train your other employees to help them be more successful in their careers and in business as well by developing a skill set and experience on how to interview people. And so not only do they get to learn something from it as well, but they also are able to feel like they're a part of the process. And so, once you've gone through all of those interviews and everybody agrees you found a good person, then it's a matter of going through the actual hiring process and onboarding process. And I won't get into too much detail just because I know we're short on time, but I do think that hiring good people is important. Onboarding people and making sure that they're successful and that they feel like they're part of the team as fast as possible is equally as important. So little things like if they're going to have business cards, having those business cards ready for them on their first day, having their computer, their phone, their first day, having a letter or a note or a card at their desk signed by the company, signed by the people welcoming them to the company. Taking them to lunch at their favorite restaurant that you had qualified during the interview process and surprising them. There's a variety of different ways to do this, but ultimately, once somebody makes that decision to join your company, once you've decided they're a good fit for your company, then the real work starts, and that is making sure that that person is comfortable, joins the organization, the team supports them, and that you give them the tools that they need to be successful so that you don't find yourself going out trying to hire a replacement in a short time because it was the wrong fit. So
speaking of the concept of onboarding, i.e. you found the right person, you've hired them, a lot of the, I would propose a lot of the success of that individual in that role will be dictated by the training and support that they're given by the organization. And that sounds like that's exactly what you're talking about. What does that mean to you, and what do you think that our audience, the integrators and the folks listening, should be doing with their new hires to increase the likelihood of their success?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first part is finding the right person, obviously, which we talked about, and don't hire out of desperation. A lot of times people need somebody so bad that they're willing to look past certain things in an effort to get a body on board. So you got to make sure you're hiring the right bodies, that you're asking the tough questions, that you're getting all that information out of the interview process. Once they get started, now it's really a matter of making them comfortable and successful. So I think that the job description is an important thing to go over in the interview process, and it's an important thing to go over again in the onboarding process so they understand what's expected of them. And then it's a matter of showing them and teaching them how you do things and how you want things to be done. And that again is not just your job; it's the responsibility of the team to do as well. So again, you might be a 2 or 3 person company, and you might find that you feel you need to take let's just say it's a new installer. You might find that you need to take that new installer around yourself and personally make sure that they're installing stuff properly. Well, if you hired the right person, then you really don't need to sit there and micromanage them. You really need to let them go do their work and then inspect them and give them feedback. So in another case, you might decide, hey, you know what? I'm too busy and I'm not an installer. I'm a business owner and a salesperson. So you're going to team them up with that second or third person on your team and have them go and work with them side by side. That's great as well. But at the end of the day, you're still the owner. You're the one that took responsibility to bring them into your company. And you're the one that has to make sure they're successful. So following up with them after their first day, asking them, how did it go? Asking feedback from the employee you partnered them with and saying, what was their perspective? Getting their support of the process is important. And again, regardless of how small or how big of a company you are, the most important thing is just to make sure that these people are getting the support they need, not just the first day, not the first week, not the first month, but until they're performing at the level that you feel is appropriate for the position and for your company. And that could be 3 or 6 months. The people that I was responsible for hiring recently, the complexities of managing multiple brands and multiple territories and such, it was a lot of work. And it was something that the expectation was clear that it was going to take 6 months to a year before they were truly competent and comfortable in that role. And that means that 6 months to a year of nonstop training and touching base and asking how you can help and asking what challenges they run into and making sure that that they're successful in that position.
Do you think that most integration firms, you mentioned that 2 or 3 man shop, a lot of businesses out there by volume are this, 5 to 15 man shop, not to be sexist, woman or man, but, people on staff. Do you think that most integrators are successfully onboarding and supporting their new hires, or do you think maybe one of the reasons for churn is that they're burning through people by not maybe properly supporting them once they've hired them?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and from what I see, a lot of times there's not enough question and answer time spent in the interview process to make sure that the person you're bringing on really is the right person. And that could be from a skill set standpoint, that could be from a culture fit. There's a variety of reasons why maybe you just hired the wrong person. And a lot of times it really comes down to, do you really have a set of questions that you ask, or do you just sit down and, have a casual conversation and call it an interview? Are there things that you're trying to understand about that person, and have you spent the time to pre-plan that interview to make sure that you can find that information out? And it doesn't matter whether it's an installer, a programmer, a salesperson, a finance person. There are things that are important to your company that you need to understand about anybody joining it. And did you put the time into making sure that you developed and figured out that information? Once they get on board, a lot of times people try to hire people that have skill sets that allow them to quickly get up to speed in that position. And the challenge is, if you hire a guy that's got 10 years of installation experience, that doesn't mean that he has 10 years of installation experience doing the level of work and quality of work that you expect. It means that he knows how to install stuff. It doesn't mean that he knows how to install stuff the way that your company wants things installed. And so I think regardless of skill set coming in, you have to treat each new hire with kind of a similar approach. And that is, again, making sure that they're out there doing the job that they need to do, inspecting it, making sure that they're living up to your expectations, making sure you're answering questions that they have, concerns they have. I think one of the biggest missed opportunities when you hire new people is not finding out from them in the first 90 days what they would do differently. They say that in the first 3 months, you either change the culture or become a part of it. And so when you have someone who comes in new, how much time are you spending with them in those first 3 months to find out what they see as opportunities that could be better for your company? And again, that's going to make somebody really feel like they're a part of your organization. But yes, to answer your question more specifically, I think a lot of times guys kind of get thrown to the wolf because they've got so much work that the business owner is trying to do, or the installation manager is trying to do, or the sales manager is trying to do. And so they hire a body, the body comes in, the body starts to do their thing, and the body doesn't work out because they lack the direction that they needed.
Now that makes sense. I want to acknowledge our audience. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And please, if you have any questions for Gordon, type it into the comments, and we'll be sure to have him answer those questions live. Gordon brings a wealth of experience, and at this point, it's probably fair to say he's worked with thousands of integrators across North America. So he brings an interesting perspective to this HR-related topic and many other topics. We're actually, depending on the feedback you guys give us, we're looking at having Gordon back and talking to him about a number of fun, more business and operations related topics with the goal of he and I really wanting to help all of you out there improve your business. When you guys are running strong, profitable, rewarding businesses, it means our industry's growing and everybody wins. So it's not always about trying to sell a black box and sell more of them. It's really about the people in this industry and us helping each other better ourselves and better our businesses. So please, if you have questions, post the questions, and if Facebook cooperates and posts real time, then I'll read that question off to Gordon. Even if you're out there, just say hi, give us a comment. Don't be shy, don't be a lurker and just watching, but give us a thumbs up and let us know you're out there. We always love to hear from you folks. Gordon, I just want to switch gears a little bit. We've talked about some high-level principles around hiring people. The market is, fortunately, knock on wood, most people are busy. They're busy trying to find new people. What's your perspective on when it's time to let someone go? And maybe you're short on labor on installers, but maybe they're just a bad apple, or maybe they're not that good. Maybe they're not that efficient. Maybe they're a bad influence on other people in the organization. When should an integrator decide that it's better to be without that person than to have the muscle to be on the job site?
That's a good question, Ron, and I think it comes down to introspect as a business owner, and you really. What I've always said to myself, and I've always said to managers that have worked with me, is that it's important to look at yourself and ask yourself, have you done everything you can to help this employee be successful in their role? It's easy to fire people. It really is. I mean, it's most places are a will-to-work state, and so you can pretty much get away with just cutting somebody for no reason or for simple reasons and move on in life. But the fact is that person has a livelihood, that person has a family, that person might have stresses going on in their life that's impacted their performance that you don't know about. And so it's, I think as people, we have to be sensitive to that, and we need to make sure that we're asking ourselves, did I coach this person when I saw that they weren't performing the way that I needed them to? Did I document it to make sure that they clearly saw that there was a path going in a direction that was not advantageous for them maintaining their position and career? Did I do it in this role? And, if the answer is yes to those things, and you've truly done all that you can for this person, and by the way, this doesn't have to be a 6-month process or a 90-day process. It can be a conversation to yourself, as soon as you start to see a problem with an individual, and continue that conversation if those problems continue to exist. But if you felt like you hired the right person and they don't work out, then you've really got to look at yourself and ask yourself why. If you ended up hiring the wrong person, well, then at least you know that that's something you can improve on as you go to interview and hire for a replacement. But there was something about that person when you originally hired them, or when maybe you took over a position in a company, so someone else hired them, that gave someone confidence that that person could do a job. And for some reason, over time, that person has not performed, and it's your responsibility to understand why. And so I think it's important that if you have people that are damaging the morale of your team, not doing quality work, not selling or performing, not showing up, if you have people that are doing things like that, there's something else going on in their life that's probably causing it, and it's important to try to understand the why. Now, that doesn't mean sitting down with somebody and saying, "Hey, I need to know why you're late constantly." Because
that may not be a bad question to ask if they're constantly late.
Well, but how about, hey, I've noticed that you're not, you showed up to work late today, and I really need to make sure you're here on time moving forward. Are there challenges that you're going through at all that are impacting your ability to be here that maybe I can help you with?
Right.
Something like that makes the person feel like, hey, you know what? I screwed up, and here's somebody who's offering to help me. Now, if they're late again, the conversation can be like, hey, you know what? We had this conversation already, and it's important that you're here on time moving forward. I've offered to help. I'm here to help if there's something I can do. But if you're going to continue to be late, then you're not going to be able to work here. And then you document it. And that could be twice. That could be back-to-back days for all the, it really could be something that quickly. And then eventually, maybe the next time it's, hey, next time you're late, I'm going to have to let you go. I can't do this anymore. So as long as there's a process, I think what oftentimes happens, though, is people just decide that somebody's not good anymore, and they just fire them. And the only time that really should be the case is if somebody's stealing from you, does something really, really stupid, assaults somebody, does something like that. But if people are showing up late, maybe their work quality has gone down, I think you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the individual, and you owe it to your team to try to dig into it and figure out if there's something you can do to coach and help them turn around.
If you look at the finances related to that, it's probably a lot more cost effective for a business to make people on your team more effective and to help them work through problems than to let them go and start a recruiting process. I mean, that is, everyone that's watching here has either been a part of that or been actively managing that. That can be very expensive and time consuming for an organization.
Well, that's why I said earlier that recruiting is a job and hiring people is a job. And I say it's a job because it has an extremely high cost to it.
Right.
And so, it is very important, the amount of time and effort you put into finding somebody, having them start with your company, introducing them to people in your organization, introducing them to your customers, having them go on job sites, all of those types of things, that there's so much cost associated with that. And then you look at the cost associated with insurance benefits and the cost associated with equipment and the time that it takes for you to onboard them, like we spoke about. And then you think about the potential for them to sue you if you let them go, and they want to claim that there's a harassment, or they want to claim that some other issue, and then you have the risks of unemployment and the cost of unemployment involved. So all those things make it a very expensive part of business, which is why we have got to do better as an industry of hiring the right people, training the right people, and making sure they're successful in our businesses.
I concur. We have a comment here on Facebook, Gordon. Cameron, he says, really enlightening discussion. He says, beyond the on-ramp phase, how do you encourage team members to influence company culture over time? Do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, great question, Cameron. And I think if I'm understanding correctly, the company culture really should be defined by the mission statement or the culture statement of your company. And I think it's something that needs to be talked about and lived day in and day out. The company I was recently with, we went so far as to actually create a culture statement plaque that everybody was responsible for. This image was an image that I had found online, tried to create it in one of those motivational pictures. You can't really read the fine print, but the fine print is the culture statement of our team. And every Friday call that we had, we went over two things. We went over our mission statement and our culture statement. Now, I'm not saying you need to do that. If you're a small company, you need to do that every single week. But I do think it's important to have regular sales meetings with your team, or not sales meetings, but team meetings, and making sure that people have an environment where they can speak freely. And it's important to reiterate what your mission statement is as a company, and ask your employees throughout the day or throughout the week, give me an example of how you took care of a customer today, or give me an example of how you did something relative to your mission statement. And I think that's how you build culture, is you keep it front and center every single day and every single week as an important part of your company. And you make sure that people are working together, and you look for challenges within your organization or conflicts in your organization, and you get people to talk it out, and you create that culture of everybody working together towards a common goal. And I think that when you have that culture, when you bring somebody into that culture, that person's going to identify opportunities that they see with a fresh set of eyes to help make that culture even better. Because you might feel, and I think this is very common, you might feel like you've created this great company culture and you've got this mission statement that you live and die from, and then you go ahead and have a new person come in and they go, I don't really see it. And that's a challenge, because sometimes owners get blinded by being owners. And so I think when you have a new employee that comes in, ask them feedback. Hey, listen, here's our culture, here's our mission statement as a company. Do you feel we're living and breathing it every day? Do you see it happening right now? What can we do to be better? So I hope that addresses your question, but I think company culture is definitely important. And it's not so much about developing it over time. It's creating an expectation up front, and then managing regularly, or creating a culture regularly where everybody is working on that culture every day, and they want to be a part of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Gordon, for that thoughtful answer to the question. Now, you recently left Core Brands, and you were most recently the National Director of Sales for the CI channel. What are you looking for in your next challenge that you take on? What's next for Gordon?
Well, right now I'm looking for, a good company that I can bring value to, and help to apply, some of this business and team building process to have some great success. And I love going out there and delighting our customers and building relationships. And so right now I'm doing a little bit of consulting work with some integrators that have expressed some need and interest. And I'm just looking for a good opportunity to come in and be a part of a good company.
Okay. Well, that sounds exciting. Gordon, are you open to coming back on here and we hit maybe some other hard topics that are perhaps close to home for our audience?
Absolutely. I love it. I would love to. I think this is such a fun industry, and it's made up with a bunch of great people and a lot of entrepreneurs. And if there's anything I can do to help in that, and to just, shed some observations, some opinions, some direction, and help out, I would love to do it. So happy to come back anytime.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Well, gang, this is Ron Callis with Automation Unplugged. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we will see you next time on the same bat time, same bat channel. Stay tuned. Check out our website for Automation Unplugged to see news on our upcoming guests. And again, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting on Facebook. Always love the feedback and the comments. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much.